Alright. Have you ever thought about gaming? Have you ever thought about gaming the system? And if you did, have you ever thought about what games you want to get with said system? Well, today I want to talk about why PlayStation and all its elements, and why you should get PlayStation and all its elements. I'll be talking about the history of PlayStation, the different consoles with PlayStation, and the exclusive games you can get with PlayStation. So first, let's talk about the history. In 1988, Sony and Nintendo were business partners. They were working on the system together. But Nintendo wanted to part ways. Nintendo wanted to part ways. So Sony wanted to make its mark. Wanted to go to the game. Sorry. Thank you. So in 1988, Sony and Nintendo were business partners. But back then, Sony had not made this first console. So Nintendo and Sony were working together. They're trying to make Sony called it. Sorry, so nervous.
It's just us, don't worry about it.
Deep breath, deal.
In 1988, Sony and Nintendo were business partners. They were working on a project, but Nintendo wanted to part ways. So Sony took the project and then made it as their own, which was the PlayStation 1. In 1990, Sony's CEO Ken Kutagari began working on the system. It was then he released it in 1991, showing it off as a PlayStation 1. In 1994, Sony would then released the PS1 in Japan, and then in 1995 released it into North America. And from there, the PlayStation 1 was born, and so were the other consoles that came with it. Sony had released many different consoles from the PlayStation 1 to current. First one was the PlayStation 1, which was the first generation of PlayStation was called the PlayStation 1, which was released in 1994 in Japan and 1995 here. Then came the PlayStation 2, which was in March 4, 2000. Next came the PlayStation 3 in November. Next came the PlayStation 3 in November 11 in 2006, which was a really big hit for Sony, and they made different versions of it, such as the Slim and there was just two versions, the Slim and the PlayStation 3. And then in November 15, 2013 came the PlayStation 4. And then they came out with the Slim and the Pro, which the Slim had 1 terabyte, but it was just a thinner version, and the Pro, which can play 4K and has a bigger hard drive and a bigger processor. And last but not least, allow me to talk about all the exclusive games that come with PlayStation. PlayStation has numerous games that are all available for PlayStation. For PlayStation 1, the top rated games were Final Fantasy VII, Tekken 3, Metal Gear, and Chrono Trigger. For PlayStation 2, the top rated games were Persona 3, 4, Jak and Daxter, Ratchet & Clank, and Final Fantasy 12. Famous games for PS3 were The Last of Us, God of War 3, Metal Gear Solid 4, and Uncharted. And for the PlayStation 4, there are still multiple games coming out for it, but the biggest hits for it were Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War 2018, The Last Guardian, Bloodborne, Until Dawn, and the most recently, Spider-Man 2018. So in conclusion, if you're ever looking for a system, a game system, with an array of games, look no further than PlayStation.
Next, is that what you're doing? Take it out. Put it on top. So Gio, what did you think?
Alright, so the central idea, get a good idea that it's about the history of PlayStation 1, PlayStation 1 through 1 through 4. Two things about the speech that I thought were pretty strong points was that I didn't know about the top games, which The Last of Us is actually a really good game. PlayStation 3, I didn't play that. And then another strong point that I saw about the speech was also that, I mean, even though you kind of like stopped a little bit, you still kind of caught yourself back up and was able to finish that speech. Two things that I think you could probably improve on is kind of take that paper out of your face and kind of like, but it's all with like preparation and stuff and things like that. But yeah, basically just prepare a little bit more for the speech. And describe effectiveness. The visual aids were pretty good. I didn't really, even though I do know about like the slim and stuff, that you could have like just put them out, kind of just give us an idea of it.
No,
But either way, see, did good job.
All right. Oh yeah, sure. Why not? All right, Mala. I think your attention device is a series of rhetorical questions, and I got to be honest with you. I'm probably an outlier on this. Have I ever thought about gaming? No. Have I ever thought about buying a platform? No. So I'm a little behind on the curve at the very beginning, and I think you need to do something to get people more involved. The rhetorical question is a kind of a passive way to get people engaged. It's an attention device that works best when you're talking about something that you didn't have planned ahead of time. You want to get people excited about your subject. You had time to get ready. I think that you're missing an opportunity here to talk about what's so great about the game, or the most recent game that you played, or why this platform is better than some other platform, or what a change it was from previous gaming systems, something to make it a little bit more compelling. Now the topic is clear. Your purpose statement is phrased as a persuasive claim, why we should get this particular platform. And that's really, to me, an argument for purchasing this option instead of other options, which never get explained anyway, says there's not really much of a comparison that's going on here. You do have a preview of what the structure is going to be, so I appreciated that. I think you need to have a little bit more justification for talking about this. It's you could point out that gaming has become one of the #1 businesses in the world, that it generates a huge amount of money, that PlayStation is the most ubiquitous platform there is. It is the one that people choose first because it has all of these kinds of things that go with it, and that's why I want to talk about it today. And to do so, I'm going to look at the history of PlayStation. We're going to look at how the game platform has changed over time, and we'll talk about some of the games and their various degrees of popularity. Then I think you could have a little bit more solid transition to the main body of the speech. I did not hear any sources being cited during the presentation, so that's a little bit problematic. You get stuck on that opening story, and I know that you're a little bit nervous, but I swear I heard it 3 times about how Nintendo and Sony broke up, and Sony took off and decided to create the PlayStation based on work that they'd been doing together. It would have been interesting to know what things had been innovated by Nintendo that they lost as a consequence of breaking up with Sony in this particular situation. How Sony managed to get control of this away from Nintendo if they were partners in this. Why did they take over? I don't know. You mentioned the CEO at the time. I think you had a picture of him in your slides, but I only saw it briefly when you were scrolling accidentally at one point, and then later on when it would have been appropriate to have him up there was no reference to him, so that was a little bit strange. Then the problem is, after that, it just becomes an inventory of, well, here are the PlayStations 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here are the games, a whole bunch of them that were popular here. Here's a whole bunch of games that were popular then. Here's a whole bunch of games that are popular now. So I get like 3 lists, and not much that is interesting about any of those lists. You don't tell me what was so great about the first PlayStation in comparison to earlier gaming platforms. You don't tell me why would anybody move to PlayStation 2 if we had PlayStation 1? Wasn't it just as great? Apparently not. Apparently there was a reason that it got better, but I don't know what that reason is. Why a slim version of it when we got to PlayStation 3? Is it just because it looks cooler? Did it have some extra feature? I don't know. You do make a reference as you get further on to the 4th PlayStation that it had a faster operating system, or that it had greater memory, or that it's 4K, that kind of thing. That's the kind of stuff that you needed more of in those earlier things. You show the visual with the... I'm sorry. Yeah, you had the picture with all the 4 platforms there, but you never made... I assume it was kind of in chronological order going across, like if I was reading, but I don't know that that's the case. Maybe one of them looked like it might be the slim line, and I didn't know what the other one, the 3 that wasn't the slim line looked like. I knew what the 3 that was the slim line looked like. There's that kind of stuff that's just not followed through on. The issue that I think is most obvious that Gio picked out is that you need to rehearse more. You need to practice this a lot more. You need to know this material backwards and forwards when you get up to talk to the audience about this subject. And I assume that you know about this. This is a subject that you picked. You're probably a gamer. You are interested in this kind of thing. And I think you got kind of hung up on this piece of paper in front of you looking at that and forgot you're just a guy who likes this thing and wants to talk to an audience about it, and you need to be more engaged with the audience. You're almost like you're performing instead of engaging, and that's sometimes you need to be a little bit of a performer, but you're not doing a great performance. You're doing an imitation performance right now because you haven't practiced enough. All right, thank you. All right, Uriel's going to be our next speaker, and Alexis is supposed to do the written evaluation, and Mo is supposed to do the oral evaluation.